So on May 18th, 2023, I had mailed out my notice of tort claim to the Attorney General's Office of Attorney General, and with the intention of filing a notice of tort claim. Simultaneously, I mailed out my same notice of tort claim to the State Court of Claims. So the claim gets in the hand of the Bureau Chief, Katherine S. Brooks, who is not a clerk. Now, what her powers and duties are, or such and such and stuff like that, I have to look into that. But she marked my notice of tort claim as unverified. As you will see in the following photos, that my claim was verified, but just using a specific law. You're entitled to make unsworn declarations, statements, in place of sworn statements. I do so for other reasons, more so going along the lines of religion. But that's not the business of Mrs. Katherine Brooks, anybody within the Attorney General's office. What a person's religion possibly is, isn't. That's not the purpose of filing a notice of tort claim. It has no connection with that. But apparently, it's being used as some basis for discrimination, or my race as a basis for discrimination. Last month, I had an issue with the Attorney General's office, April, and they had done something similar. I had filed complaints with that office, and they rejected my complaints, dismissed it. And I had a right to do that, exercise my right to have power extended to my complaints, but they did not do so, even though there was probable cause. But as you can see from the photo, the postage stamp was created and made on May 24th, 2023, and it was sent first class mail back to me. 28 U.S. Code Statute 1746, titled Unsworn Declarations under Penalty of Perjury. It states, wherever under any law of the United States or under any rule, regulation, order, or requirement made pursuant to law, any matter is required or permitted to be supported, evidence, established, or proved by the sworn declaration, verification, certificate, statement, verification, certificate, statement, oath, or affidavit in writing of the person making the same, other than a deposition or an oath of office or an oath required to be taken before a specified official other than a notary public. Such matter may, with the like force and effect, be supported, evidence, established, or proved by the unsworn declaration, certificate, verification, or statement, there you go, in writing of such person, which is subscribed by him as true under penalty of perjury and dated, and in substantially the following form. 1, or subsection 1, if executed without the United States, I declare for or certify, verify, or state under the penalty of perjury. Under the laws of the United States of America, that the foregoing is true and correct, executed on date, signature. Subsection 2, if executed with the United States, its territories, possession, or Commonwealth, I declare or certify, verify, or state under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct, executed on date, signature. Now, I have made my statement on the document Yet, they're saying that it's unverified. And according to this statute, I have a statutory right to make or use unsworn declarations as having the same effect or like force of a sworn statement or notary public. So Mrs. Brooks here is clearly in violation of the statute and engaged in mail fraud or obstruction of correspondence between me and the Attorney General's office in regards to extending the time of my notice of tort claim, which I already filed with the state court of claims. It's just that they're rejecting it out of retaliation, which is also another form of discrimination. So because I filed a complaint against a school that has the interest of excluding me from the school, okay, for reasons that are in the claim, they're trying to retaliate against me for that. So I have every right to file my claims with the Attorney General's office, whether verified or not, and have their powers, applied to my complaint. Dismissing my complaint is not applying your power to the complaint. So here, as you can see, I made the declaration. I titled it Declaration in the area where the sworn statement was supposed to be made, right? I filled out this document to the best of my knowledge. And as you can see, there is whiteout on the document, which was sent back to me, okay, showing that after this document was sent back to me, the original was sent back to me by the Office of Attorney General. This is the practices that they're engaging in. And it was stamped, filed. Okay, so they received the document, stamped it, and then sent it back to me. Sent back the original. That means they don't have possession of the papers. According to 18 USC 1341, Cornell Law School, mail fraud occurs when the U.S. mail is used in furtherance of a criminal act. In order for a defendant to be convicted under 18 USC 1341 for committing mail fraud, the following elements must be satisfied. The defendant must have engaged in a scheme to defraud. That's the first element. Second element is the scheme must have involved material misstatements or omissions. Okay? 3, the third element, the scheme resulted or would have resulted upon completion in loss of money, property, or honest services. So that's incoherent acts would have resulted in, but in this case, it did. So this fourth element is the defendant must have used U.S. mail in furtherance of scheme to defraud. Well, I mailed it certified. They sent it back. Okay. Using U.S. postage. All right. And 5, the defendant used or caused the use of U.S. mail. All right. So they used U.S. mail and they caused it to be sent back. So Mrs. Katherine Brooks, you engaged in mail fraud. All right. And it's a white collar crime. See what happens. So Miss Katherine Brooks schemed to make misstatements, that my complaint was unverified when it was, to cause the omission. the failure of the Office Attorney General to receive and accept notices of tort claims and extend the time periods of the claim. Okay, and she caused injury, loss of honor services, loss of paid mail delivery services, loss of right to petition the government for redress of grievances, First Amendment right to petition the government for redress of grievances, and the loss of the Fourth Amendment right to be secure in my papers. All right, I had and a right to contract. Like, I contracted with USPS to deliver the papers to get correspondence from the Office Attorney General, and she is engaging in torturous interference with the business contract. Okay, when she does this, all right, it's not just mail fraud. One act can constitute more than one crime. According to Section 195 of the Criminal Penal Law, official misconduct reads and states, a public servant is guilty of official misconduct when with intent to obtain a benefit or deprive another person of a benefit. He commits an act relating to his office but constituting an unauthorized exercise of his official functions, knowing that such act is unauthorized. Or 2, he knowingly refrains from performing a duty which is imposed upon him by law or is clearly inherent in nature of his office. Official misconduct is a Class A misdemeanor. Well, Mrs. Katherine Brooks deprived me of my right to use a unsworn declaration in place of a sworn declaration for my notice of tort claim. And she deprived me of the benefit of serving the Office of the Attorney General's office and filing my notice of tort claim with the Office of Attorney General office and extending the period of time I have from 1 year and 30 or 90 days to 2 years. That was the whole purpose of filing it with the Office of Attorney General, to extend the time period. So what she did was decided to use CPLR 3022 and make a misstatement and call a verified complaint an unverified complaint and treat it as a nullity, which is only things that you're allowed to do with unverified complaints. Here in this case, I make my statement under 28 U.S.C. 1746, and Mrs. Brooks conspires to treat my complaint or my notice of tort claim, my claim, as a unverified claim. So that's a cover-up, okay? And that's also in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1001. So Mrs. Katherine Brooks, scheming to use CPLR 3022 and her misstatement to defraud me or trick me, deceive me, was an unauthorized exercise of official functions, okay, under Section 1 of 195.00 of the Criminal Penal Law. Katherine Brooks scheming to use CPLR 3022 and her misstatement to defraud, trick, or deceive me, then send the mail back to me after the law imposes duties. The Court of Claims Act is the law, and it imposed duties upon her office. These duties are also inherent to her office, and her scheming to send the mail back when those duties are imposed upon her by her office and refusing to, extend the time period within 90 days and call my claim unverified basically meets the element of subsection 2, because at that point she's refraining from performing her duties. And according to the criminal penal law, 195.00 states that a person shall be found guilty of official misconduct when intended to obtain a benefit or deprive a benefit. Okay, so therefore, Mrs. Katherine Brooks should be found guilty of official misconduct. All right, and that's all to it. Hey, which is a totally different crime. CPLR 1101D, Poor Persons Relief Form, also requires a sworn statement. As you can see here at the bottom of this page, in the area where you're supposed to make a sworn statement, I had made my declaration. All right. And what Miss Catherine Brooks, who works for the chief bureau, she's a chief bureau and she works for the Attorney General's office here in New York City. She decides what she was going to do is send it back to me and say that it was unverified. Well, CPLR 3022 only authorizes her to treat my complaint as a nullity and or the Office Attorney General as a null, my complaint as that's filed with the Office Attorney General as a nullity, and send it, whatever they do, supposed to do when it's treated as such, where the complaints are not verified. Here, that's not the case. Mrs. Brooks misused her power in her office to secure exemptions for State College that I'm suing. So let me know your comments down below. You can like, comment, share, or subscribe. Hey, but I really want your comments. So thank you. However, the paper is shown in the front here. The claim form is shown on the front here as received May 24th, 2023. All right. And below, I dated it as required by law. The last page, I signed it above the declaration statement. And the declaration statement is even better because the statement is made under the penalty of perjury. Right? So, as you can see, their statement is not necessarily under the penalty of perjury, but used for those purposes. So, the next thing is,